Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of JD Talks NASCAR. Once again, coming to you on a Friday with the 4th of July holiday, all kinds of stuff going on. It's a little later in the week, but wanted to get this in. And first of all, what a bad beat. As a Denny Hamlin fan, as a guy who was super confident in him winning this Nashville race for the last month, a terrible beat. It looked like Denny tracked down Ross and passed him clean and was going to cruise to the win until, of course, all heck broke loose. Ends up setting a record for most overtime attempts in a NASCAR race. Ended with 5. Just a crazy finish. Fuel mileage contributed tremendously to the end of the race with all the cautions and just a very good race at Nashville. Which I mean, Nashville usually puts on a pretty decent race, but definitely took a page out of the crazy book this weekend for sure because it was wild. So let's get into it. Christopher Bell wins stage 1, continues his dominant performances. Swept the stages, I'm pretty sure, at New Hampshire the week before, and of course won the race. Just a great performance from the 20 team up until his mistake, which I'll get into that a little bit later. But the 20 team looks like they're hitting their stride at the right time. The regular season's winding down, and they keep getting faster and faster. It seems like they're the team to beat at more tracks. I think he'll be fast again this week at Chicago. He was fast last year until he ended up in the tire barriers at one point, but he's a good road course racer, and the 20 team is, like I said, hitting their stride. So expect Seabell to win one, maybe 2 more races. That's how confident I am in their speed. And you can say he's snake bit because, it kind of seems like he is. Either he messes up, the team messes up, but they always have a super fast car, arguably one of the fastest in the field. So we'll see what happens as the year goes on with him. But, I like the position the 20 team is in right now. John Hunter Nemechek, who won the Xfinity race on Saturday, wrecks and spins through the grass, ends up messing up his right front, and he was very slow from then on out the rest of the day. Like I predicted Ty Gibbs to win at Nashville, but I did say it would be Gibbs or Nemechek. Nemechek ends up pulling it off. Good for him to get back in the winner's circle. He had a very good Xfinity season last year and has not done that well in Cup. So far this year has had a lot of troubles, whether it's mechanical issues, brake failures, or just don't have the pace that he thought he would have. I thought Legacy would be better this year, to be honest. Switching to Toyota, I thought that, last year was kind of a situation where they didn't have the Chevy support, and they've switched to Toyota and they haven't been much better. I hate it for Eric Jones and John Hunter. But, with Eric Jones's contract coming up, I think it expires at the end of this year. I'll be anxious to see if he resigns or goes somewhere else or what he decides to do. But Legacy has just been off pretty bad. So once again, John Hunter did win the Xfinity Series in the Joe Gibbs racing car, but lost a Cup race and lost his car. It looked like he was just a self spin off of 4, ends up spinning through the grass, does damage to his right front. And like I said, I think he was involved in another incident later in the race, but just not a good year so far for that 42 team. Ty Gibbs spins. I thought Ty Gibbs had one of the fastest cars in the field up until that point. I think he did something similar to John Hunter. He just spun through the grass. He didn't do damage to his car then, but he looked like he had good long run speed in the 54. That doesn't surprise me either. Ty, it seems like he's coming into his own. I know he struggled lately. At the beginning of the year, he was really on fire. Top 10s, top 5s, but lately it seems something's off with the 54 team. Not really sure what it is, but I think he will also be a contender at Chicago. He was super fast last year in his rookie season. Didn't get the finish that I thought he deserved, but he'll definitely be a factor this week too. I'm struggling with who to pick for the Chicago Street Course. I'll just tell you now. I'm not struggling as much Xfinity, but with Cup, I really am struggling because I don't know, which I'll get into it, but it's not as cut and dry as the last couple have been for me. That I've been dead set on a winner. I this weekend I really uh I have no data to go by. I mean, I'm not going off of last year's race. That was just like wild circumstances. Huge rain the day before, the day of, a shortened race, single file restarts. I mean, just crazy stuff. So I'm not even going off the data from last year, but we'll see what happens. I'm pretty confident. I mean, I should say I'm not confident. I'm confident in who I'm picking, but I'm not confident that they will win, if that makes sense. But like I said, I'll get into that towards the end of the episode. Then, of course, it wouldn't be a NASCAR race without a weather delay, which I was glad for. I worked until 5 on Sunday, so I was glad to see that delay happen so I could get home and watch the rest of it. So no complaints from me. I think it's rained every year at Nashville that they've had it there. I've went the other 2 times. I didn't go this year, but it seems like there's a delay of some sort at least there in Nashville when they have it on this weekend. Um, 17 and 24 issue, will he be saved? I can't remember 100%. Maybe Busher got tight, slowed down, and Byron kind of hit the back of him, and but saved it, or maybe it was the other way around. I know William Byron had a heck of a save there to save his day. Christopher Bell sweeps the stages, wins the second stage. Kyle Larson, who I expected to have more speed throughout the day, has a terrible pit stop after the second stage, cost him valuable track position. I was really shocked that Larson wasn't. I mean, I know he was up there by the end, but he was never like a factor that I thought was going to get up there and win, and that really shocked me. I expected that from the beginning. I thought he would be up there. Corey LaJoy and the 15 into each other. I mean, LaJoy, he had such a good start to the year last season, and since then, I'm not really sure what's happened. You know, I don't know. Host of ours doing a pretty good job, except this week we got to talk about something he did boneheaded, but he's ran the 77 definitely better than it was ran last year. Zane Smith, a career best finish of second place this week out of nowhere. I mean, a lot of it had to do with strategy, but I think that's a better finish than Corey's had. I mean, these are valid questions, and I like Corey. I really do as a driver, but he's just I don't know really what's happened to that 17. They showed a lot of promise last season, and just it hasn't seemed like I've seen that promise this year. Eric Jones into the fence. You know, same thing with John Hunter and Eric Jones. Just rough seasons in the legacy cars. Chase Elliott self spins. Man, 3 and 4 was treacherous. It must have been like the concrete must have been super slick in that spot because guys spun off of that all day long. Chase Elliott spin through the grass just like Ty Gibbs and the 42 did. C Bell, um, after dominating much of the race due to other cautions and strategy, he ends up about midway through the field, and on a restart, just takes it 3 wide and just gets loose by himself. There's no other way to say that. He was trying to march his way back to the front, which I do not blame him one bit for. He was in the back due to strategy, unforeseen circumstances, after dominating the race, and just self spins, drives it in too deep, gets loose, and pretty much ends his day. He had pretty severe damage to that 20 car, so I hated to see that for C Bell, who I'm really starting to like even more as a driver. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys in the garage, but he's also very skilled at what he does. And I think you can see that with the performances they've had lately. Um, Brad Keselowski and Austin Dillon was interesting dynamic there. I don't know if Brad got told by his spotter TJ that he was clear, or I mean, I don't know what happened. It was by a mere inch that Austin Dillon got into him. I don't think it was anything intentional on either guy's part. Honestly, thought Brad thought he was clear, and he wasn't. And just Austin Dillon gets into the back of him, spins Brad K up the track, and completely damages the backside of his car. but due to cautions and stuff, he was able to recover for. I mean, it wasn't like a huge recovery, but I think it was like 24th or 25th that he ended up finishing, but better than last, better than 34th for the 16. They did a good job of getting that car repaired and back on the track, and they met minimum speed and they were able to continue. This now, after the Brad K, like this all happened in the same time, the Brad K Austin Dillon incident, we see Harrison Burton turned in the middle of the backstretch. And, some drivers said they thought that's what the caution was for. Actually, no. The caution was for Brad K. And under caution, Carson Hocevar turns Harrison Burton. And Carson, I was just praising him a couple of weeks ago on here, talking about how good he was running. He was staying out of trouble, it seemed like. Yeah, that's I'm getting the vibe that everybody in the field's not Hocevar fans. Harrison under caution, there's no reason to wreck a guy. There's no reason to right hook a guy at any point in time, in my opinion. And there's definitely no reason to do it under caution. Just a complete bonehead move on his part. And you see him perform so well in certain positions, and then other times it's just like he loses his mind. It's definitely you've got to raise questions about certain competitors, and Hocevar's a guy that you can tell the talent is there, but he's got to use his brain. I mean, this is like a repeat. I mean, we talked about this last season in the Truck Series. We talk about it. I mean, it's something different. I mean, he'll go stretches where he will perform at a great clip, and then he'll go through stretches where he had an incident like last week in Nashville, wrecking somebody under caution. I mean, you just got to have better. You got to have a better mindset than that. He might just have meant to got into him under caution, but I don't think that was the case. I think he just spun him. He claimed over the radio that the 21 hit the brakes. I don't see that. I mean, he might have, but it's probably to get him off of him. Instead, he ends up right hooking him. Luckily, Harrison didn't have any damage, but obviously was upset with that. NASCAR decided to fine Carson Hocevar $50,000. So maybe reaching in his pocketbook is a way to go. We'll see. And speaking of Harrison Burton, he's out of the 21 ride. They announced this week that Josh Berry is going to fill that seat. I originally thought it was Justin Haley. Said that a couple weeks ago. I thought Justin Haley was going to be the guy. But we'll see where he ends up. If he stays at Rick Ware, that wouldn't surprise me at this point. But Josh Berry to the 21 at Wood Brothers. And there's potentially, I mean, Rodney Childers might follow him. I'd be shocked if he did, but the possibility is out there. But definitely they announced Josh Berry to the 21 this week formally. So congrats to Josh. I'm glad he's staying in the Cup Series. I think he's done a great job in the 4 cars so far this year. And then we get to the fun stuff. We have a Ross and Denny battle that lasted several laps. And, Denny had the faster car, tracked him down. He did have a hard time passing him. He would get to him and, he would overdrive a corner, or Ross would aero block the crap out of him and he would have to lift. But you could definitely tell watching the race, Denny had the best car at the end, and finally get him. Didn't even have to touch him and Ross just got loose up out of the groove, and Denny went by him. And here I am celebrating. Can't wait to gloat on the podcast. Can't wait to get my 3rd fantasy win in a row. And then a caution with 1.5 laps to go. I mean, they took the 2, and Denny was halfway around, looking like it was going to be 3 straight race win predictions, 3 straight wins in fantasy. It was looking great. And then all hell broke loose. And, Gregson and Cindric, I mean, I don't know what happened there. I love Noah. Cindric is all right in my mind. It's just nonsense. Playing grab butt in the back while Denny's racing for a race win. It still stings if you can't tell. It still stings. Would have been the 4th win for Denny this year, as predicted on JD Talks NASCAR, and would have been another race win for me. But that's not how it happened. Austin Cindric, Gregson wreck with 2 to go. and that was just the beginning. As we restack them, we end up having 5 overtime attempts in Nashville. The first one I think was the most eventful, and the one that I want to talk about the most. And I know I've got a lot of Kyle Larson fans that listen to this. I like Kyle Larson myself. However, I thought that the move that he pulled on Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain on Sunday was one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen him attempt. I don't think people are talking about it enough, to be honest. I think it was a complete disregard to Denny. I think it was a complete disregard to Ross, who's a Chevy guy. What you could argue Larson did owe Ross one for last year, but just I just don't agree with full on sending it into the corner trying to wreck Denny in one. And if you're gonna do it, you've got to do it. I mean, if you if you're gonna try to wreck a guy, you got to make sure to wreck that guy, and not someone else who's a bystander. And I don't even know. I was speechless watching that. I really couldn't believe I just watched that, and it just goes to prove one thing. I think Denny is in Larson's head, and you all can disagree with that all you want. I'm just giving you my opinion. I think that this rivalry is getting to him. I think last week Kyle Spotter got in his head about the whole Denny thing about, him letting him push him around on the racetrack. And Larson, if that conversation didn't pick up the steam that it picked up online or on a TV broadcast, does Larson make that move? If it is anybody else in the field but Denny Hamlin on the front row in front of him, does Kyle Larson make that move? The answer is no. It's just no. I mean, you can sit there and you can say that, yes, no matter who it was, he was going to try to wreck them. I don't believe that. That's not how Larson races. He might use them up, but he's not going to flat out wreck somebody like he tried to do with Denny and end up doing to Ross. But I thought it was a boneheaded move. And, Larson's not a guy that I would put in the bonehead category. And listen, I've got no problem if he did what Denny did to him last year at Pocono. If Kyle Larson gets under Denny, runs him up the track, potentially into the fence, and Larson gets by him, that's exactly what Denny did to him at Pocono last year. I've got no problem with that. The problem I have is just completely barreling it down in the corner, trying to just clean a guy out. That's just that was uncalled for, in my opinion. Luckily, it did not stick, and he didn't wreck Denny, but he did collect Ross Chastain. I'm still shocked about that move as well. I'm stinging from Denny not winning the race, but I'm shocked at the move that Larson pulled. He that's not him. To be honest with you, I think he's one of the best drivers in the field. I don't know if he's the best, like people say, but he's a very good talent, very exceptional driver. So it really did shock me to see him do that. And didn't he said on his podcast this week, it's a rivalry. So let's go. If we're gonna pick this thing up, then let's get it. I'm excited to see where it goes. I like both guys. Denny's obviously my favorite, been my favorite since his rookie year. Um, so I mean, it is what it is. I think rivalries in general are good for NASCAR, especially when it's two great guys, two great race car drivers like Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. They're friends off the track. Is that relationship the same now as it was? I wonder. That's a question that pops into my mind because, uh, you know, I, I struggle to think it is just because of, it really seems like Denny's in his head. Seems like the fact that, and a point was said, I forget what podcast this week said it. I think it might have been the Teardown. Shout out to Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, who does that every week. They do a great job over there. But I think they said, one of them said that, Kyle Larson has decided, and you could argue rightfully so, if you're a Kyle Larson fan, that, he's not going to finish 1-2 to Denny Hamlin and be number two anymore. And I think that this week at Nashville proved that. I think that's a very good point. I think the 5 team in general is not going to take it anymore. So it'll make for interesting battle for sure because I know Denny ain't going to take it either. I mean, that's the good thing about this. A rivalry, are two guys that are going at each other. And, you're going to see the 11 and the 5 both up front a lot, just like you did last year. And, the media is going to make a big deal out of it. I'm talking about it on this podcast. Everyone's talking about it. Dale Jr. Download talked about it. I haven't got to listen to that episode this week, but I saw a clip, of Dale pretty much saying, us as fans, we get to pick these rivalries out. And, I think this is one. And, it's confirmed by Denny. Larson didn't confirm it, but I mean, you can tell in his post race it's a rivalry to him because he's sick of it. I mean, he's sick of getting done the way he's done or the way he thinks he is done by Denny. And once again, that was proved by the move that he pulled during the first overtime. So there's my take on that. I know, my Larson fans might not be happy with my assessment, but that's my opinion. So let's see where this goes. Those guys are going to battle, and it'll be entertaining for sure. It always is. Now, big wreck after that one. It was Harrison Burton, Corey Haim, and Justin Haley among those involved. It just looked like, Bubba was trying to get to the front. I think Corey Haim shot the gap at the same time and just took out a bunch of cars, led to a restart. At this point, I had my mind made up that Denny was going to run out. They thought they were good for one green, white checkered. This would have been about to start the third. I felt like he was going to run out just based on the radio communication and the broadcast. And he stayed out for one more green, white checkered. And this was the one where Kyle Larson was out when he tried to go, ends up stacking up that outside line. Kyle Busch gets wrecked in the process. Hate it for him. He was working on another good run and ends up going home early. But Larson ran out, therefore, Denny and Larson pitted around, I think, the same lap. Truex had to pit, Denny had to pit, and that left Joey Logano and Chase Briscoe basically fighting for the win. Chase Briscoe runs out, and then here comes Tyler Reddick out of nowhere. Zane Smith is in the picture due to strategy. And, it looked like Reddick had the fresher tires, which he did, but it looked like he had the way faster car. And, just couldn't get by Logano. And my playoff pick that I picked to not make the playoffs, Joey Logano, proves me wrong and gets in. That would have been a long shot hit if I would have hit that. But, if he doesn't win, he's probably right on that cut line. So, but Logano gets it done, runs out of gas doing a burnout, stretched his fuel tank 110 laps somehow. I still do not know. I still do not know how he did that. Everybody says it's because he was going so slow before that, which I get. I mean, if you're going a lot slower than the leaders, you're obviously going to save more fuel. But a crazy way for Logano to get his first win of the year. I should say first win of the points paying year. He won the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, but first points paying win of the season. Now we shift to Chicago Street Course. I thought last year was NASCAR put on a great show, even with the weather. This year, hopefully we get 2 full races, Xfinity and Cup. I think both will be great. I would be stupid to not pick anybody in the Xfinity race but SVG. Larson is racing Xfinity. Ty Gibbs is racing both of those guys. I think that's your top 3 right there. If any 3 of them win, I would not be shocked. But SVG, unless he has a mechanical failure, I think is the guy far and away that wins the Xfinity race. He's swept the road courses this year so far. It's Chicago Street where he won a Cup race. I think I would be stupid to pick against him. You can say, well, you're picking a favorite. Yeah, I am picking a favorite. But I think it's a rightful favorite that, like I said, if he were to lose, I think it's on a late race restart where someone roughs him up. And, I don't see that happening. I think the field will get strung out, and SVG will dominate. but we will see. Could be totally wrong. Um, you know, but I'm going to go out on a heck of a limb and say SVG wins the Xfinity race. I mean, he's favorite, but he's not a huge favorite. I was looking at betting lines earlier today. Would it shock me if Larson challenged him? Absolutely not. I think Larson, very good road course racer, street course, maybe not as much, but Xfinity car, he usually does a great job in. So he's got the Hendrick car this week in the Xfinity. No doubt in my mind he can give SVG a run. And, Ty Gibbs was good at Sonoma before he had an issue. He was keeping up with SVG, so that'll be fun if Ty can get up there as well. You could have a heck of a three-way battle for sure for that Xfinity win. I'm excited to watch that. And then you got the Cup race on Sunday. This is one that I've struggled with all week because I don't know who to pick. I mentioned earlier that, I couldn't really, when I'm looking at these projections and picks, I'm not feeding into the data from last year because, NASCAR announces 3/4 of the way through or halfway through that's going to be shorter, that changes up pit strategy. Guys that weren't running good at all are now up front. Just strange. And SVG went on to win. SVG is a guy that I looked at. Could he repeat? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. But then I look, last year he was in a track house third entry. This year he's in a Colleague car, which Colleague's been off in the Cup Series this year. They just have. And SVG, could he make up that speed? Absolutely. He probably will. But double file restarts this year. As long as no rain's in the area, I think you have a normal race. Can he hold his own on restarts in the Cup Series? We'll see. He's got a little bit of a reputation for using people up in Xfinity. I don't think that's going to fly in the Cup Series if he tries to do that. I think he'll end up wrecked if he does that. But we'll see. I just don't see any way that the guys let him come over and win 2 Cup races in 2. I don't see that happening. I really like Tyler Reddick in this spot. Driving for 2311. He's a heck of a road course racer. They're in Chicago. He's in a Jordan brand car. I think that would be the storybook ending. So that's a guy you definitely got to look out for. But a guy that I think is flying under the radar. I think, he's not getting the respect that he deserves. I think we forget, he's won the last 2 of the 4 road course races in the NASCAR Cup Series. He dominated at Watkins Glen last year. I mean, this guy, I don't understand. Nobody's talking about him. It's like, every show I listen to, it's like they forgot about him. And I know he's been off lately. Mile and a half, he had an issue at Sonoma. But up until his issue, he was running within the top 5. William Byron is my pick to win Chicago Street Course. I can't wrap my mind around why nobody's talking about him. He's an exceptional road course racer. He's already won the Daytona 500 this year. He's got a great crew chief in Rudy Fugle. He's got a great team, a great pit crew. Give me William Byron. I'm almost sound like ticked saying that because I can't find anybody that's picking him. He's like 8th in the odds in Vegas. I think that's crazy. We'll see how he qualifies, but I'm all in on the William Byron train. I got him 7th pick in fantasy this week. I cannot believe he fell to me there. Had to take him. So, we'll see, but I was between Byron and Reddick. I thought maybe even McDowell, but then I realized, McDowell, the front row Ford support with him leaving the Spire, I just don't think they'll give him the support he needs to get up there and win. But I like William Byron. So thank you all for listening. I cannot wait for Chicago. We'll see if I can get my picks right this week. I'm confident in the Xfinity pick, not so much Cup, but we'll see what happens. So thank you all for listening. I know it's weird on a Friday night getting this, but thank you all for listening to JD Talks NASCAR. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. You all are the absolute best. Let me know what you all thought of last week's race. at Nashville. And we'll see you next week right here on JD Talks NASCAR.